Hello, everybody. How you doing? It's Damon once again with a great list, and this time let's go back to the topic of wrestling. And I'd like to basically talk about the best, in my opinion, top 20 best WWE factions of all time. Now, usually I wouldn't do that, but what is the definition of faction? A faction, okay? Check it up first. A faction is a small, we can say basically, it's a group. Basically, it's a small dissentive group within a larger one. I would say in this case a faction will basically will be a group, a party, basically group, or basically a certain amount of people that basically are trying to seek basically to do whatever they can to seek to fulfill their own goals. So in this case, to me, what I define as a faction is a faction. It's not a group of three people. It's at least four people. So, if we talk about W factions, we overrate the Shield, which is a great faction, but it's not the best. It's not even in the top 10. It's a great group, but not in the top 10. It's basically in maybe the top 20, but in the top 10. But in that case, that disqualifies the Shield as a faction. It also disqualified the New Day. Sure, the Grayson Waller joined the New Day recently, but there's still been three people at a time. I'm looking for factions that were at least four people at a time. And to me, I have to already have to disqualify the Four Horsemen because as much as I love the Four Horsemen, it's one of my top three factions of all time. They're not WWE made. They weren't WWE and didn't have that much of an impact. Similar to the NWO of 2002. If you ask me, the NWO in general is in my top three factions of all time everywhere. Its impact is unparalleled, and anybody can say what they want to do about the NWO. The NWO would have come back in their prime. If you talk to Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, or 1996 would go into time machine, come back today, and as the NWO, I would make them rule wrestling again. Alas, it's not possible. And also in WWE 2002, there was no impact from this faction. Also, I'm not going to include any TNA factions, so Main Event Mafia, uh, I'm not going to include them. New Day is not going to be included. No AEW faction, not even NXT faction. Like Undisputed Era, I was really close on putting them on a list, but I said the main roster. So in terms of main rosters, the top 20 factions of all time, and the more I look at it, the more a lot of faction existed, but not many of them accomplished anything. Like Social Outcasts, they're not going to be on that list. Truth Commission, never mind. DOA, Los Boricuas, no. I'm talking about faction actually accomplished a goal. It created big impact in the WWE. Number 20, I just disliked them at the time, but they were annoying. RTC, Right to Censor. They're hilarious. Their point was, and I have to give shout outs to great Stevie Richards. Uh, I really like him. I really liked him as a wrestler. I always thought he was underrated. I always felt like he should have gotten a match with Shawn Michaels. At the very least, a match at WrestleMania. So shout out to Stevie Richards, as well as the Stevie Richards show with James Romero. I really liked it. But the Right to Censor, to me, was a great way to establish Stevie Richards. I mean, he was Raven's lackey, to which he became the leader of the Blue World Order, signed his independence. Then he left and became again the lackey to Raven. Then came back in ECW, didn't work. Then he basically became a tag team with Blue Meanie and had the dreaded impersonation beginning before going to RTC. He reinvented himself, and honestly, that really helped later on there. So, as the leader of the RTC, I thought was the goal was to be as annoying as possible. Like basically, people were mocking. I thought was mocking committees that were trying to censor televisions because they were displacing the blames for corruption in their lives rather than blaming themselves. They were they were basically the parody of people who blame violence in video games or TV for the fact that their kids become violent. I talked about this in terms of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 being much less dark than the first one because parents thought maybe if they saw Michelangelo using nunchakus, maybe they become more violent rather than just looking at their own inwards and their own behavior. Maybe that's the reason why their kids were lashing out rather than seeing a movie that was about action. Nevertheless, in that case, it was about morality that's not really morality. and they were annoying as all hell. They were imposing their beliefs on others, and nobody hates people more, and nobody hates other people more than people who impose their values to someone else. Like you had Stevie Richards, you had Bo Buchanan basically being the slash on slash quotation mark preacher of the group. You have the Godfather became Goodfather, which basically Godfather being one of the most popular wrestlers in the Attitude Era right now. Suddenly he loses appeal because of his Godfather, as well as Val Venus. And you had Ivory joining it as the morality, uh, prudish morality based character. And it was very annoying, but they also got a good impact. It led to basically WB really, really making sure that the PTC, the Parent Television Council, got a bit more, you know, grief, and also started to basically tone down the Attitude Era without going too much tone down. So, and yeah, it led to Bo Buchanan and Godfather becoming World Tag Team Champions, Ivory again Women's Champion, and at the WrestleMania 17, both matches they got squashed. And I thought that's why I put them at number 20, not higher than this, because it's like they had a good purpose, but unlike other factions, they didn't outlast their welcome. Yeah, people might say they outlast their welcome since the first day they started, but I didn't. They were a good heel team, and the moment came to a big moment, WrestleMania, they got destroyed. That's it. And then they started peering out the faction. I mean, how many factions keep going on for eternity? And I do mean the Bloodlines there, Judgment Day is there, Bullet Club. Hey guys, being around longer in terms of longer years doesn't make you better. It just makes you more redundant. Don't don't believe me? Ask about The Simpsons and compare it to a show like Breaking Bad. Just saying. Being longer together doesn't make it better. It just makes it more redundant. But that's my gripe, and that's my number 20 pick. Number 19, Cam Cornette. I love the late great Owen Hart. I love the late great British Bulldog. I love the late great Yokozuna. I love the late great Vader. And just saying this makes me very sad, thinking that all members of that group are all members of that group are dead. All of them very talented. Owen Hart is a slimy heel. British Bulldog has a power based with a bit of technical ability uh, heel. Vader and Yokozuna were the monsters. Yokozuna for the first half of the Team Cornette, Camp Cornette team was basically the monster, but the feud with Vader started when Vader arrived at WWE and Yokozuna could sense that his role as the monster was basically getting replaced by Vader. So, but all of them, it's like, look at the impact that they did in 1993, 1994 to 1996 during the downtime of the WWE. Owen and Yokozuna, in the only great moment of WrestleMania 11, won the tag team titles. Now, still, that's the reason why I wouldn't have given the WWE title to Owen Hart back then, because I thought him win the first title at WrestleMania 11 and celebrating like he did anything of the related to the finish when it was Yokozuna would squash Billy Gunn for win out to get the world tag titles. To me, still hilarious, one of the great WrestleMania moments. And yeah, I would rank this group higher. It basically, apart from this, we had basically Yokozuna being the world WWE champion, but even then, he felt like it was a happenstance champion. He never really won big matches by himself. It's either he got DQ'd, counted out, or somebody interfered for him, despite being 568 pounds. But it was still a very good group. It just wasn't the best. But also James E. Cornette. We were talking about Bobby Heenan, Paul Heyman. James E. Cornette was damn good on the microphone. And how can you not like his eccentric outfits? You knew who he was. You basically he wasn't lost like many people in today's age. You knew who James E. Cornette was, and he was never at a loss for words. Number 18, JBL's Cabinet. Now, that might be a bit controversial because you might think, okay, Damon, they weren't only for like a year, and I say, good. You don't need to have a faction that lasts forever and forever and forever. They were basically a faction created by JBL the moment he became champion to keep him champion. And so what? During that time, look at the impact. JBL became the longest reigning transitional champion of all time from basically June 2004 to WrestleMania 21. During that time, Orlando Jordan beat John Cena to become U.S. champion. During that time, the Bashams beat RVD and Rey Mysterio to become tag team champions. To me, it's a no-brainer that had a lot of impact in the BB. Number 17, the Hurt Business. That's one of the more recent groups I'm going to put on there. Hurt Business is a group that tragically was cut way too short. I mean, at first, MVP wants to manage Bobby Lashley, was basically managed by Lana. And I'm thinking, what's going to happen? I'm basically, at first, when I heard this, I wasn't really feeling it when it was just Lashley MVP. But little by little, then they added Shelton Benjamin, added something, then Cedric Alexander jump along, and basically, you really create a great faction. Whereas Lashley was the US champion, Cedric Alexander and Benjamin won the tag team titles. And I think Shelton also took that time to win the 24/7 title too. It's like, okay, very good, but he misses a WWE champion in that group. And eventually, Lashley lost the US title to Matt Riddle in a match also starring John Morrison when he wasn't pinned, but 8 days later won the WWE title. And I was happy until they used that time to dismantle the Hurt Business like 2, 3 weeks after he won the WWE title. Maybe it would be a higher group if they didn't do that. And then they tried to revamp it and it didn't work. It was like for like 4 weeks before he faced Goldberg or something like that. And it was out. It's a group that's Hurt Syndicate, and I think in the AEW, that's the best group. By far is the best group. In a company that's made with WrestleCrap group like the Trustbusters, Death Riders, I find out other names of the groups like the supply and demand. You have one group that actually stands above the rest to be not just legitimate badasses, but actually feels like a group, feels like they have a common purpose. The closest thing to that might, oh, by the way, another group that sucks, the Don Callis family. I mean, apart from Conglomeration, you only have two groups that rock in AEW, Conglomeration and Earth Syndicate. That's it. Every other group sucks. And you wonder why there's 400,000 viewers only. Yeah, right. But at the same time, I could say for the same thing with the WWE doesn't have lots of great groups either. They only got two, and one of them has lasted for way too long. And I think Hurt Business should have lasted longer in WWE. Now that was number 17. Number 16, we go way back in the past for the first family, the Jimmy Hart family. Now, you might say, okay, but what family did he have? Well, in 1987, he had the Hart Foundation, a little-known tag team, in which case they won the World Tag Team titles. And at the same time that happened, he had the Honky Tonk Man as the Intercontinental Champion. He had Dangerous Danny Davis. He had Bruno Sammartino. And he took over, basically, the late Johnny Valent's clients and Greg Valentine and integrated them to his group. It's like a lot of good wrestlers, a lot of wrestlers that were part of that group. Maybe I forgot some, but to me, it's already very, very good. It's like Jimmy R was mostly a tag teams manager, but look at the tag teams he managed. Even when some of them left, when the Hart Foundation left, the Fabulous Rougeos came in and became one of the best, hilarious tag teams ever. I mean, with a great team song, the All American Boys. He also had Earthquake, Typhoon. He had the Nasty Boys. He had Money Inc. All of these. Why couldn't he be on that list? I don't see why he couldn't make the list. He had many great tag teams under his name, under his factions, and to me, he needs to be recognized. So that's number 16. Number 15 is one of the two current WWE stables, and that's the Judgment Day. Now, is it the current Judgment Day right there? No. It's mostly the Edge, or basically the Judgment Day from 2022 2024. So that would come, but you have Edge, you had Damian Priest, you had Rhea Ripley, you had Finn Balor, you had Dominic Mysterio. Dominic Mysterio, to me, was basically taking the best transformation of a character in the last 10 years. Here's a guy that basically just felt like a nipple hire and became one of the best characters that have been in the last 10 years. And yes, Dominic Mysterio is indeed better than most people in AEW. Stevie Richards is right about this. Anybody who doesn't like this can quite frankly kick rocks and go touch grass. Cal Fletcher is a great wrestler, but nobody knows what his character is supposed to be, and he's not going to draw a dime when he's basically the way he's wrestling because it doesn't explain his character. And honestly, if Stevie Richards tells you to slow down because he wants you to be able to do this for more often, for longer, in other words, the less is more philosophy, listen rather than criticize. NW basically are just so thin-skinned that they can't understand a good criticism amidst a bunch of this needless criticism. They're just so antsy to criticize. And quite frankly, they criticize WWE at the same time, but then they wonder why the ratings are down. So yeah. But nevertheless, Judgment Day. I just think the Judgment Day has become a bit too has lasted way too long. That's the reason at this point, like in 2022, 2024, there was a purpose. I mean, Rhea Ripley went from basically I always joke that I felt her character felt like a heavy metal loving poser. What was surprised 2021 to 2022 did not do a Shannon Moore and say, I'm bringing sexy back. To right now, you feel like she's a legitimate badass. That's because her staying in Judgment Day. Finn Balor always relied on the demon because, quite frankly, that's was his only character, is painting himself across the face and doing a demon, but having the same move set. It took like Judgment Day to add some personality to him. And Dominic Mysterio, never mind. Damian Priest actually ascended to his game with Judgment Day, became more imposing, which I feel like kind of lost a bit of its luster since left. And Edge kind of redefined himself through Judgment Day. So yeah. Now Liv Morgan also added something, and you can add Raquel as well. But yeah, I think like since 2024, 2025, they became like a from an upper card team, even slightly main event team to just a mid card team since then. And let's be honest, changing the awesome team song of Alter Bridge is the other side, which one of my best favorites, best teams, best wrestling teams in the last at least 10 years. WB thought it was a great idea to change it to a generic Def Rebel team. Yeah. But anyway, talk about the team, the stable. I mean, look what they've done from 2022, 2024. They won the world title with Damian Priest. They won Money in the Bank. They won at least three Raw tag titles, two SmackDown tag titles, uh, and they dominated the World Women's title with Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan respectively. That's a lot of impact there. So yeah, that's my number 14. Number 15, sorry, 14, The Authority. I didn't like The Authority angle. I still don't. But as much as I hate to admit it, they did have a lot of impact. I mean, Randy Orton, from this 2013, 2015, look at what it produced. It basically made sure Daniel Bryan is the champion, just get him screwed by Randy Orton and Triple H for Orton cash in the WWE title twice, to win the WWE title twice as part of the Authority, and Seth Rollins used that to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase to win the WWE title once. They also won during that time. They won the Dean Ambrose, the Shield. I'm going to consider the Shield in that category. The Shield is part of the Authority. He was part of. He created his very long U.S. title reign during that time. Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns were tag team champions during that time. And what else happened in the Authority? Yeah, Big Show won the Ender the Giant Memorial Battle Royal in 2015 as well. It really reverberated. Its impact was reverberated all over the Fed, and sometimes not in a good way. But it did have an impact. It created Triple H being heel again, and it was basically like the corporation, except unlike the corporation, it felt like the babyface could never have a long-lasting victory over them apart from WrestleMania. It always felt like Triple H, not just Stephanie, but Triple H as well, made sure that I have to be the cooler place. I have to be the cooler person. It'd be the equivalent of the corporation, in which case Vince McMahon always ones up Stone Cold Steve Austin. So while I push it high, I don't really like this angle, and I'm happy that we've gone beyond that. Now, something I'd like to be beyond that's number 13, the Bloodline. Again, that's one of the best factions in the last 10 years, but I'm just so tired of being just Bloodline, Bloodline, Bloodline. To the point it meant nothing. The Bloodline means nothing anymore. To me, it just felt like a way to get Roman Reigns, give him power, and he had 4 years champion, and maybe he helped business, maybe that's a point, but it kind of helps to help business when you're never around, so every time we see you, it's a return. So it's kind of easier, but at the same time, I can't deny basically the impact Roman Reigns was WWE Universal Champion. Not WWE Champion, but Universal Champion for 4 years. He was WWE Champion from WrestleMania 38 to WrestleMania 40, which is 2 years. Barely defended the title, but still. The Usos at the longest reigning SmackDown title reign ever. But I'm not sure that they didn't have the longest reigning tag team title tag team title reign. I think this one is still with the New Day from 2015 to end of 2016. But the Usos are indeed the longest reigning SmackDown tag team champions of all time. And the longest reigning World Tag Team champions of all time is still Demolition. Okay. But the impact of this, Solo Sikoa was introduced. I mean, Paul Heyman reinvented himself, rather than be the advocate for Brock Lesnar, he became basically the wise man for Roman Reigns. There was something of you know, he had a mafia feel to this group. That the mafia kind of like side I like in this group, and you could see the insecurity of the Roman Reigns character coming through. That basically make it seem like everybody wanted to step up, but it really felt like he just wanted to use them, his family, to not only dominate the WWE, but also keep him on top. He said he was tribal chief, but nobody really of his family defined him as a tribal chief. He defined himself as tribal chief, but he wasn't ready to let go of that role. He wasn't wanting anybody else to be world champion but him. So yeah, and Sami Zayn actually created new life. It also helped the group. It also helped that we finally were able to differentiate between Jay and Jimmy in terms of personality. That was the greatest accomplishment between two identical twins. Differentiate what would be the difference between the two. Jay being the more hot-headed one, Jimmy being the cooler head person. And yeah, it did a lot of character development. Also for Sami Zayn, who came in as a joke, basically to make sure he basically initially joined with the bloodline to not be irrelevant, and eventually befriend people in the faction. He endeared himself to Jay and Jimmy, but he didn't want to lose. Basically, he didn't want to lose his friend in Kevin Owens in doing so. He wanted to keep those two friendships separated, and basically that led to Sami Zayn turning on the bloodline, turning on Roman Reigns to join Kevin Owens. So like, there was a good reason for that group, but I felt like that group should have been shattered after WrestleMania 40. Right now, I just think it's a redundant group. So yeah, number 12. It didn't last long. It lasted 2 months by putting in the corporate ministry. Even the title seems ridiculous, but still, on the first SmackDown, 1999, it was a one-off edition of SmackDown, the pilot episode, to see Shane McMahon appear on the ramp with Triple H. And I think on the other part of the ramp, you have Undertaker and Paul Bearer. And then Shane McMahon basically united the Ministry of Darkness and the corporation to create a corporate ministry, which would end up being Vince McMahon would be the higher power and one of the worst twists ever. Shane McMahon, Stephanie McMahon. Wait, sorry, Stephanie wasn't part of this. Triple H, Undertaker, Chyna, Paul Bearer, JBL, Farouk, Viscera, Mideon, and for some reason the Mean Street Posse. What I like about this group, I mean, The Undertaker became WWE champion during that time. Chyna was the first ever woman to participate in King of the Ring tournament. The Acolytes, back then the Acolytes, and later on the APA, won the World Tag Titles. And they were feuding with Austin and The Rock during that time. They made us think that the Big Boss Man was going to turn face, but he did for a while just to be outside the corporation because of the implication that came of the Ring ladder match between Austin and the McMahons, in which case no member of the corporation could interfere. By the time Big Boss Man was kicked out of the corporations, he could do this. So he never really turned face. He just basically did the rules of the McMahons, which I thought was a missed opportunity because I thought Big Boss Man as a face could have been good. But anyway, and also Big Boss Man during that time won the Hardcore title during the corporate ministry. Like all of them, there was a role in the corporate ministry. It was very short, and it didn't need to be longer than that. I felt it was a great super faction. Went from a faction to super faction. It was good, but had it stayed longer than basically the summer, that would have been bad. Now, number 12, the Nexus. Yes, it's a group where I felt like was basically kind of buried at SummerSlam 2010. It still had a lot of impact. Like this debut is legendary. I mean, Wade Barrett won the IC title multiple choice, so basically, and Wade Barrett did beat Cena in his first WB singles pay-per-view. Uh, the Nexus is responsible for many debuts. I mean, Daniel Bryan, Bray Wyatt, Ryback, Heath Slater, less but still. Uh, and also CM Punk and John Cena were members at one time or another. One of them willing, the other one wasn't. But still, it's a good one. It's just it could have been so much more. It's one of those groups that could have been so much more. Now, that was number 11. Let's go to number 10. Like right here. Sorry, I'm gonna spin. Uh, sorry. What did I write here? Uh, mm, oh yeah, sorry. The Radicals. The Radicals, like those, that group was very, very good. It's like for a year and a half, it's like basically the fact that Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Perry Saturn were like 24 hours removed from being WWE wrestlers. Sure, they left a week before him, but I didn't expect them to see them on the TV. It's like I just remembered seeing them on Nitro, and all of a sudden they showed up at the WTV. That was a great moment. Imagine if basically take a wrestler that basically was a former world champion. For example, if you saw, uh, if out of nowhere you saw Swerve Strickland, you saw Bryan Danielson, you saw Darby Allin, you saw somebody else, 8 years, 8 days after the last AEW pay-per-view, sitting ringside the WTV, don't you think it'd be a big deal? Don't you think we'd be excited? It'd be a shot in the arms. That's for damn sure for TV. It's like anything can happen. And at the end of the show, they assaulted Triple H. And it started well until like WB decided, you know what? On SmackDown, none of the Radicals have to win their match. And eventually they had to join up Triple H because they had to turn heel for some reason. That's already a bad start, but it led to a great 10 on 10 match on Raw. It led to Chris Benoit becoming like all of them captured gold really, really quick in WWE. Chris Benoit, I like the fact that all of them had a separate division they wanted to go in. Chris Benoit wanted to win the Intercontinental title, and he did so at WrestleMania 16, like in short order after his debut. Eddie Guerrero won the European title against Chris Jericho the day after WrestleMania. Perry Saturn won two hardcore titles later on the European title. And Dean Malenko was relegated to the light heavyweight title scene. But still, and any one of them could have challenged for tag titles. It's just like Triple H, basically Triple H was just wanting DX, X-Pac and Road Dogg to be tag champions, and himself being the WWE champion. So that time, it really felt like a faction that was legitimately like built of rabid pit bulls that could defend themselves and could fight themselves out of a bad situation. And the fact that they did come from WCW, but I didn't feel like, unlike other people that came from WCW, that it was used against them. It was used against them like for the first week and afterwards, okay, they were pushed like they were WB superstars by themselves. So yeah, that really helped. Maybe WB should have done it more often instead of punishing people coming from other feds. I don't know. So yeah, that's for number 10. Number 9, the White family. No, that's not a revisionist story. I really like the White family. And the reason they're here and not the Shield is because they were at very basically at just almost all times there were 4 members. First you had Bray Wyatt, you had Luke Harper, you had Eric Rowan, eventually you had Braun Strowman. And afterwards, when they moved to SmackDown, you had Bray Wyatt, Eric Rowan, Luke Harper, and Randy Orton. And every time they were together, they created a lot of good moments. The first time around, I felt like they had an excellent match with the Shield at the Elimination Chamber 2014. They basically tried to corrupt Daniel Bryan and didn't work. But even then, they went from. I remember Bray Wyatt started by beating Kane on pay-per-view. Afterwards, I think he had a program with The Miz. He beat Kofi Kingston, and he was feuding CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. And he beat Daniel Bryan in the Royal Rumble 2014 until he was beaten by John Cena at WrestleMania 30. So that kind of derailed his plan, especially also the feud with Dean Ambrose, which made me roll my eyes right now. And WrestleMania 31, he lost the Undertaker, but it's like, okay, that's fine. Afterwards, basically, the Wyatt return in 2016, 2017, it led to WWE champion Bray Wyatt. It led to the it led the Wyatt family win a SmackDown Tag Team Championship, and it felt like a group that could always was always a menace to anything they could do. So it also made sure that people, it also the impact of the WWE, it makes people think that basically, or at least wrestlers, that they had to take their basically take control over their own that take control of their own characters and create their own storylines, create basically nuance for their own characters, and not just rely on what you have for me lately in terms of creative. So that's number nine. Number eight, the Minister of Darkness. Yes, the Minister of Darkness acts like a great group by itself. If you just say Undertaker, Median, Viscera, but they added the APA, and more importantly enough, because I want to put them there, they're the Brood. Gangrel, Edge, Christian. I cannot put them by themselves, the Brood, because by themselves they were a three-man group, mostly based on Edge and Christian. But look at this. Undertaker, it was being leader of his first group, and even then create a lot of dark moments of this. The APA, I remember how they destroyed Public Enemy on Eat after lose. They made sure they lost by DQ, but I never saw somebody losing by DQ that actually looked more like a winner than the APA on that show. And I never saw somebody winning by DQ looking more like a bunch of losers than the Public Enemy there. But yeah, and the Brood, we know it's a team music, awesome entrance, and yeah, it's still a music, it's still a group that basically, yes, it was based on the Lost Boys, stuff like that, but and a music that's based also on Black Sabbath. But it's like to me, it's legendary. Like the Minister of Darkness, they didn't really get any title, to be honest with you, but they had a great impact to me in WWE history. Number seven. Now we're going people like winning titles. We got one, the Evolution. Evolution is indeed a mystery, full of change that no one sees. Again, I see a lot of Triple H being in groups, and I feel like, here's my personal opinion, Triple H is a guy who was a good wrestler, who was portrayed as being an excellent one his whole career, when quite frankly, he was always hidden in a group and always tried to make him seem like he always tried to leech off more talented wrestlers than he was in the group. He did this in DX, trying to leech off Shawn Michaels. He did the same thing basically in the corporation. Tried to leech off basically over The Rock and some of the heat of Mr. McMahon. He tried to leech off in Evolution of Ric Flair, and in Authority, he tried to leech off Randy Orton. Always something like that. Always trying to leech off somebody else. But that's my personal opinion. In Evolution, he was kind of unbearable when he was always world champion. Ric Flair, Batista being world tag team champion, and Randy Orton, we can love him now, but let's be honest, he was shoved down our throat as Intercontinental champion at first. He wasn't that talented. He just became more talented as time goes on, to the point where right now he's one of the crispest, most complete wrestlers there are. Who might feel that should be the only one to do a cutter as a finisher, or a cutter as a move anyway, but I digress. Evolution was kind of the group that was shoved down your throat every week. But last time I checked, my list isn't basically my favorite WWE factions, what I feel are the best WWE factions. And they were this. I mean, how many champs did they gain between all of them? Orton with the IC title. At least 2 World Tag Team titles between Ric Flair and Batista. And I dare say around 4 or 5 world titles by Triple H. It led up to Randy Orton breaking up from the Evolution of face turn that didn't work, but Batista's face turn is still one of the best face turns in history. And even then, it led to a resurgence of Ric Flair as a wrestler. So yeah, I would grant him there's a lot of good aspect for this, but I don't even think it was the best faction of 2002, 2003. That comes in at number 6. That's Team Angle. Team Angle with Kurt Angle, Big Show, World's Greatest Tag Team with Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas, and yes, the A-Train. 3 out of 5 is good, okay? Kurt Angle happened to be having great matches there. He was the WWE champion, and the World's Greatest Tag Team was the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. And heading to WrestleMania to feud up with Brock Lesnar, I thought was a very, very good faction. It's not as mentioned as it should be. I mean, the impact of this, there was a time of the SmackDown 6, and basically we could have said SmackDown 8 because it added Benjamin and Haas to the list. And yeah, being the tag team match between World Greatest Tag Team, Los Guerreros, and Ben White added in was very good. So yeah, that's number six. Now we're going to top five. Number five, the Nation of Domination, or the Nation. Here's a group that fascinated me from the get-go. Yeah, you're right. The first iteration at Farouk, before he was Farouk, after he was Farouk, it was just Farouk. Ron Simmons being the leader of this group, and yet Clarence Mason, who to me is an underrated manager. And I was surprised they would know he was actually a real life lawyer. But Savio Vega Crush, where basically the base Crush was a muscle man. Savio Vega basically turned heel and actually I feel like kind of killed this push because apart from like the month or so there was a nation of the nation, he's not being pushed as ardently afterwards. But it's not for that nation I would put on top. No. It's when Farouk fired the original nation and basically decided to have a new nation with D'Lo Brown being the only mainstay. You had Godfather, Kama Mustafa. You had The Rock, the former Rocky Maivia who turned heel and joined the nation, and Mark Henry. And seeing The Rock going from a happy-go-lucky, boring baby face to The Rock, stealing every promo, call himself in the third person, which still does to this day, and being proud that he won the WWE title, the WIC title, not only by forfeit, but because Austin said, I don't want to face you, not because I can't beat you. I did it the day before. I'm going on to bigger things and getting stunned in the process. Like he wanted the IC title in the worst way possible, and yet it worked for his character. He used the next 8 months, and I say, I think he's a better Intercontinental champion than Gunther ever was, because every time you saw The Rock, you saw champion. You saw title that matters. When I saw Gunther, I saw it kind of matters, kind of. More than usual, more than the last 10 years, I'll tell you that, but not as much. And yeah, I see The Rock as basically the moment he kicked out Farouk, he made sure to induct one more member in the new nation, and that was the late great Owen Hart. And even then, The Rock, as arrogant as he is, his character that is, he knew that his experience wasn't as good as Owen, so they became co-leaders of the nation. And I love the nation of '98. I just wish they were treated better, especially Owen. Like Owen was basically the tragic victim of the screw job, and the feud between Michaels and Artin was treated basically like he couldn't even get his revenge, couldn't get some comeuppance on Triple H. He always was pissed by he was always pinned by Triple H and descended the card afterwards. And I really didn't like that. I didn't appreciate that because it made me feel like the WWE did not value Owen Hart as they should have. But the impact on this is unprecedented. Unprecedented. You had Rock become Intercontinental champion, and it's like it led to Rock ascending the top rung at basically at the youngest age at the time as being went from being the youngest ever IC champion to the youngest ever WWE champion the same year. It went from Owen Hart actually regaining some of his luster for a while. It went from Mark Henry to basically becoming the world's strongest man, and yeah. It went to Godfather developing his character. It went from D'Lo Brown basically standing on the crowd and basically becoming the head shaking, head swiveling character with basically a chest protector that reestablished character and basically made him multiple time European champion and Intercontinental champion. So I always think of the nation as a smile, and I always laugh at the meme of Dennis Stamp being part of the nation because damn it, he was. At least he was in my heart. He was part of the nation. He just never showed up. He never was booked. So yeah, that's number five. Number four is the oldest one, is the Heenan family. Bobby Heenan's Heenan family. And to think, most of the reason why the existence of the whole family is to take care of Hulk Hogan. Imagine how self-centered that could be, like in terms of politics, brother. This whole group exists just to take care of me, brother. I mean, but look at the talent roster you had on that group. At one time, you had Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff, you had King Kong Bundy, you had Aku, you had Tama, you had Andre the Giant, you had Hercules, you had Handsome King, Harley Race, you had Mr. Perfect, you had Ravishing Rick Rude, all of them enemies of Hulk Hogan. And all of them, honestly, were better off with being associated with Bobby Heenan because the men meant business. He also managed a Red Rooster, but we're not going to mention that. Look at this. Andre the Giant was the WWE champion. Okay, for 8 seconds, but we can argue that if Andre did not forfeit the title, he would have been champion for a lot more, a hell of a lot longer than that. I think would have been as long as he felt like it. I mean, imagine many World Tag Team Champions. The Brain Busters, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard. He managed Andre Naku. He managed two Intercontinental champions in Vision Recruit and Mr. Perfect during that time. I can even say that Ric Flair was W champion under his watch. What more can you add? To me, it's the best, the retro group that's the best retro group there is. By far. Bobby Heenan is the best manager of all time. There's no argument there. And here's a guy who had no problem getting some comeuppance in the ring. So yeah. Number 3. This is where it goes more modern. It's D-Generation X. Why so low? You can say, I like the X, but the first time I can't count Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Chyna's group. It was more of a tag team, which is why it was irritating when they were dominating other people, because like you're just 3 people. To me, that's not a group. That's a team. That's an alliance. However, the DX, led by Triple H, X-Pac, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, Chyna, was a group. And even then, as much as I disliked Triple H, like I always felt like it was funny that everybody had their own team song, the group, except Triple H. Even that group, it basically told you that Triple H was leeching off everybody. In that time, when there was no Shawn Michaels, he was leeching off X-Pac's popularity. Yes, that's right. X-Pac was the more popular of that group. And I like the fact that each of them also went for their own titles. X-Pac at the time didn't want to go light heavyweight title, but he was European champion. Road Dogg and Billy Gunn kept going on to being very, very dominant tag team champions. And they cheated often. Like DX was still the kind of face that would still cheat. And Hunter would go up to the European champion that never defended, unlike X-Pac. And afterwards went for the IC title, which he held for a short while before dodging Ken Shamrock, because he knew what Ken Shamrock could have done in the ring. So yeah, I like the group, but at times it's like I felt like they're not just like, oh, they're face, but still remain there and with an edge of it. I felt like they never really got the comeuppance as heels before they became face. Sure, Shawn did, but Triple H didn't. Chyna didn't. Like that's what you need to do before you became a face. And I felt like as much as they say, oh well, look at this, Damon. They sold a lot of merchandise. A lot of people sell a lot of merchandise doesn't mean anything. So that's what hold it up for number 2 spots. Number 2, the Corporation. Again, 98. I like the Corporation because as an awful human being he is, Vince McMahon as Mr. McMahon, especially cool collected Vince McMahon, to me was my favorite. The one that was just rambling and yelling like in the last years, or even the last 20 years, I didn't like as much. I liked him when cool collected, when he still thinks in his mind he's a good guy. That's my favorite Mr. McMahon because that's basically a personification of what you would see in real life. Boss, like, they wouldn't yell like crazy till the face goes red. They basically try to basically be condescending and make you feel like they're good guys when they're not. That's what I like about this. I love like, Rock as the crown jewel of the corporation back then, the big boss man, and Ken Shamrock as the enforcer, but very, very like Rock won 3 WWE titles under the corporation. Ken Shamrock won the IC title and the World Tag Team titles as part of the corporation, with the big boss man was Hardcore champion and World Tag Team champion in the corporation. You had Test, the introduction of Test, the guy with the best running big boot ever. You had Kane being forced to the corporation. You had Chyna turning against the yes joining corporation. And yes, you had the Stooges, Mr. McMahon, and Gerald Briscoe, and Pat Patterson. Like, I love evil faction as Stooges that basically are just there, bunch of kisses ass for them. I like this. And the Mean Street Posse with Shane O'Mac to sell how Shane was tough in the underprivileged streets of Greenwich, Connecticut. That's awesome. It was nearly my best favorite faction of all time until it came to number 1. And to me, there's no discussion. It's the Hart Foundation. Why? Not only is it a family-related faction, but it's one that made sense. And all of them were united with one common purpose because they were fed up with basically the bad reaction. They were fed up with basically feeling disrespected by the American fans in their minds. And all came up because of one match and one person. The submission match WrestleMania 13 and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Bret Hart turning heel was a big deal because to me, as I mentioned before, he turned face at WrestleMania 4 by being screwed by a head swiveling, black trunks wearing guy with no friends to lose a battle royal, and Bret Hart lost his cool, destroyed trophy, and turned face right afterwards. Fast forward 9 years, Bret Hart gets screwed several times by head swiveling, black trucks wearing loner, who takes out everybody in his path. Bret Hart actually this time wins the match at WrestleMania, goes a bit, but after he wins the match, goes wants to eradicate this guy from the WWE, and he turns heel because of that. It's like black trunks wearing, basically, ball black trunks wearing wrestlers happen to be Bret Hart's kryptonite, it seems like. And yeah, it led to Owen winning, joining the faction. And to me, what's was hilarious is Owen Hart went from saying to everybody, "My lousy brother Bret" for many years to "my loving brother Bret." It's like Owen had those little highlights. He didn't highlights. He would take a little thing and make it so awesome, but just a little thing. You had the British Bulldog being the British Bulldog, Jim Neidhart, you had the late great Brian Pillman, and I still remember basically this fantastic, basically the fantastic fan sign of the Art Foundation turning their back to, you have to see it to believe it, but it's like, I love the fact that every one of them had a purpose. Like, I love the fact it was also, as much as it was Bret Hart establishment at the top guys WWE champion, it was also quietly making Owen Hart slowly creep up the WWE title or WWE ranks, being World Tag Champion, IC Champion at the same time, as well as European, as well as the Bulldog being European and World Tag Champion at the same time. And if the lightweight title was there, I could have seen the lightweight title going to Brian Pillman. I love that because it built them up, but didn't make also establish them as heels in America, but face as everywhere else. It's like in America, as long as it was America, they act like heels, but everywhere else they kind of felt justified. It was a bit more complex than normal wrestling storyline, and actually it had a lot of impact. To me, it made Bret Hart much better in promos. From 96 to 98 was very good. It kind of lit up a fire because it's like as much as I love Bret Hart, he's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I felt like during 95 felt less motivated, but this time he felt something motivated since then. Owen Hart, I mean, what can I say about Owen Hart that's not glowing? He's awesome. He was awesome. He should have been WWE champion many times over. British Bulldog, I mean, very powerful wrestler, underrated technical wrestler as well. Brian Pillman was very good, but his car accident in 96 kind of derailed everything. And Jim Neidhart was Jim Neidhart. To me, that's the best faction because it led with a purpose, and honestly, it left the WWE in a much better place. So that's my opinion. I want to know what you guys think. I rambled on it long enough. See you later, guys.